I know it's Monday, but it's time for math!
I'm a fireball.
All right. So, lesson 5.8. Now we're going to talk about subtracting mixed numbers. Okay, adding and subtracting. To be honest, it's exactly the same as adding. First thing you got to do is get common denominators. Today we're going to have common denominators, but there's one thing that sometimes with subtracting you got to do a step before you can subtract, where you don't have to do that before you add. Let's take a look at this. Turn in your books to page 193. On page 193, there's a caret. It says solve problems. Well, the total length of a caret is 9 3/8 inches. Okay? This drawing shows how much of a carrot a rabbit ate each day until the carrot was gone. So, what was the length of the carrot when the rabbit started? The length of the carrot was 9 3/8 inches long, as it says up in the top. 9 3/8 inches. Making my pen a little skinnier. There we go. How long did it take the rabbit to eat the whole carrot? Well, how many days is it broken up into? 5 days is how long it took to eat the carrot. Now, this is the setup for the problem. Okay? We'll get back to this problem and go day by day in a little bit. But just to do the setup part, the whole carrot's 9 3/8 inches long. And what we're going to do is we're going to be subtracting every day one part at a time. For example, if we look at day 1, how much of the carrot's left after day 1? We would take 9 3/8, the length of the whole carrot, minus the part that we ate, or the rabbit ate, or whoever ate, on day 1. When we subtract, we do the same thing. We look first, make sure there's common denominators. There are. And then the next thing we have to do is look to make sure that the numerator on the first fraction is larger than the numerator on the second fraction. If, in fact, it's larger, we can separate the whole numbers. 9 minus 1 is 8. And then we can put it over the same denominator, just like we did before. And now we can subtract the numerators because the first one is larger than the second one. 3 minus 2 is 1. And what do we have left after day 1? We have 8 1/8 of a carrot. Okay? That's what works when we don't have to borrow. Let's look at examples of this. Not having to borrow. Again, oops, and I copied this problem down wrong when I did this earlier. Let's see if I can fix it. Probably won't let me, but we're going to try. Nope. Okay, so I'm going to cover this up. This is supposed to be a 1. Okay? So, we have 3 2/3 minus 1 1/3. Okay? I look and see the denominators are the same. Good. Now I look and see, is this numerator larger than this one? Yes, it is. So now I can go ahead and subtract the whole numbers. 3 minus 1 equals 2. The denominator stays 3. And 2 minus 1 is 1. My answer is 2 1/3. No borrowing. Okay? Let's try another one of these. 5 3/4 minus 2 2/4. Again, first we check to make sure we have common denominators. We do. And then we look at the numerators. 3 and 2. The first mixed number has a larger numerator, so I don't have to borrow. So now I just simply subtract the whole numbers. 5 minus 2 is 3. Keep it over the denominator 4. And then 3 minus 2 is 1. So subtracting when you don't need to borrow is the same as when you don't have to borrow. Then it's just like addition. You just subtract instead of adding. But as we look at the next page that I made, sometimes when you look at the problem, you have to borrow to be able to subtract. Here's what I mean, okay? Let's look at this problem, and we see that we have the same denominator 4. Good. Okay, we know that 4 1/4, the whole first mixed number, is larger than 1 3/4. We're good. When we look at the numerators, 1 in the first one is smaller than 3, so we can't subtract that. Okay, so we have to borrow. When we borrow, get rid of that circle there. When we borrow, we have to take from the whole number and put it back. So what we're actually doing is taking 4 and making it a 3. We've taken 1 from the whole number. We need to put that whole number into the fraction. Well, how do we make one whole number with the denominator 4? We make it 4/4. So we have to take that and put it here, 4/4, and add these two together. Okay, and that gives us 5/4. So I borrowed from the 4, made it a 3, and I put that 1 and that in the form of 4/4 and add it to 1/4, making 5/4. Now I can subtract. So now I can take the whole numbers. 3 minus 1 is 2. The denominator is 4. And 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 and 2/4, which can also equal, is also equal to 2 1/2. Now, how does this look if I rewrite the problem? I'm going to rewrite the same problem down here in black. Okay? 4 1/4 minus 1 3/4. Let me show you a shortcut. I think you're going to like this. When you need to borrow, what we did up here at the top to borrow was how it works mathematically. We take from the 4, make it a 3, we put 1 whole, that 1 we took from 4, and add it to 1/4 in the form of 4/4 to make 5/4. Well, here's the shortcut. I know I need to borrow, so all I do is I add the denominator and the numerator together and make that my new numerator. 4 plus 1 is 5. And I make that my new numerator. And that's all. And I have to borrow from the 4 and make it a 3. So I borrow from the 4, make it a 3, and then I add my denominator to my numerator, shortcut, and I get 5, and the denominator stays the same. Now I'm still ready to subtract again. So 3 minus 1 is 2, and 5 minus 3 is also 2 with the same denominator 4, which again is also equal to 2 1/2. Okay, borrowing. We take from the whole number, 4, make it a 3, add our numerator and our denominator together to make our new numerator, and keep the denominator the same. All right, let's apply this on page 193 again. Turn your page 193. All right, 9 3/8 is what we started with at the beginning of day 1. How much was eaten? We have to subtract these amounts. We get the length at the end of the day. Okay, so we look and we see that the 3 is larger than the 2, so I don't have to borrow. 9 minus 1 is 8. The denominator is 8. And 3 minus 2 is 1. Okay, length at the end of the day. That will also transfer over and become the new length. Let me make my pen a little skinnier again. My new length at the beginning of the day. So that will be 8 1/8. I write over here. That's my new starting point. Okay, now I'm going to subtract the amount eaten on day 2. Well, if I look at the top of the page, the amount eaten on day 2 says 2 7/8. And I have to subtract this to find out what's left at the end of day 2. This one we need to borrow. Okay, watch carefully again. I'm going to borrow using blue. I'm going to borrow from the 8, make it a 7, and then we'll take the denominator, 8 plus 1, and make my 8 plus 1 is 9, and that's my new numerator. So now I have 7 9/8 minus 2 7/8, and I can subtract. 7 minus 2 is 5, and 9 minus 7 is 2/8. Okay, that number transfers down, becomes day 3, 5 2/8. I look back up and again and look at how much was eaten on day 3, and we have 1 5/8. eighths. Okay, need to borrow again. So what do I do to borrow? I need to borrow because the 2 and 2/8 is smaller than the 5 and 5/8. So I borrow from the 4, or 5, make it a 4, and then 8 plus 2 is 10. It's my new numerator. So now I have 4 and 10/8 minus 1 and 5/8. 4 minus 1 is 3. 10 minus 5 is 5. And that goes over 8. I transfer that number over to 3 and 5/8. And then subtract the amount eaten on day 4, which is 2 and 1/8. No need to borrow. What I'd like you to do is pause your video, and I want you to finish day 4, transfer it over day 5, add the amount needed on day 5, and subtract to show that the to finish the chart. Finish the chart now. All right, let's see how you did. So we don't need to borrow this time, so I just subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1, and 5 minus 1 is 4. So 1 and 4/8. Transfer that over to the beginning of day 5, 1 and 4/8. And we see that the amount eaten on day 5 was 1 and 4/8. And 1 minus 1 is 0. 4 minus 4 is 0 over 8, which is also equal to just 0. None of the carrots left. We've eaten all the carrot. All right. Now, let's do some more practice. Just general practice with subtracting. Okay? Put a couple problems down, and I want you to practice. One will be without borrowing, one will be with borrowing. So let's do 9 and 5/7 minus 3 and 2/7. Number 2 will be 8 and 1/6 minus 3 and 5/6. Okay? One of those you'll need to borrow, one you will not. Write these down, pause your video, come back and check them when you're done. All right, number 1, don't need to borrow. So we have 9 minus 3 is 6. Denominator 7. 5 minus 2 is 3. Okay. Number 2, we do need to borrow. Okay. The 1 is smaller than, and 1/6 is smaller than the 5 and 5/6. So again, I borrow from the 8, make it a 7. Take the numerator and denominator, add them together. 6 plus 1 is 7, and 7 is my new numerator. Same denominator. Now I can subtract. 7 minus 3 is 4. Denominator is still 6. 7 minus 5 is 2, and I have 4 and 2/6, which can also be written as 4 and 1/3 if I simplified. All right, I think you are ready. Today you're going to be doing, well, I just realized there's one more problem I need to show you how to do before we get to homework and remembering 5-8. What if I have a whole number? Let's take 4 minus, let's say, 1/4. Okay? Now again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow here, but what am I going to do is I'm going to take the 4, I'm going to break it into 2 parts. Okay, I'm going to borrow 1 from it, which makes it a 3. And now I'm going to take that 1 whole that we talked about and write it with the same denominator. I need my denominator to be 4. So I'm going to make 4 into 3 and 4/4, because 3 and 4/4 is actually equal to 4. That's 3 plus 1 is 4. Now I can subtract. 3 minus nothing is still 3, and 4 minus 1 is 3/4. Okay, so it's just almost like I'm borrowing, but I'm changing the 4, taking 1 away from it, and putting 1 on the other side in the form of fraction with the same denominator as the other one, so 4/4. Okay, if I had 3 minus, let's say 1 and 1/5. Now I'd again take and borrow from the 3, make it a 2, using the same denominator, make this 5/5. So 2 plus 1 in the form of 5/5 is equal to 3. I still have the value of 3 there, but now I can subtract it. 2 minus 1 is equal to 1, and 5 minus 1 is 4. Denominator is 5. That's one other problem you might see, whole numbers, and how you borrow and set that up. Now, homework and remembering 5-8. Now, you are ready for homework and remembering 5-8. That's right. Do your homework. Do your homework. And remembering 5-8. That's right. Homework and remembering 5-8. Get her done. Work on it right now. Good luck.